Around this working title we just come up with, we have working subject matter from this brainstorming. We did great. You don't have to come up with 14. You might have came up with more than 14. If you're just looking back at your life, I hope you come up with more than 14. I can probably come up with about 30 to put up on here. But like I said, I'm just messing around and came up with 14. So we have 14 working subjects and ideas around our main title. Let's go to part 2. Okay, in part 2, we're going to organize the brainstorm. Organize the brainstorm simply means we're going to come up with 4 main subtopics that covers everything that we have in there. There should be 4 main themes that's running across your mind during this whole ordeal of the brainstorm. Now, for our working title, My Crazy Life, I've come up with 4 main subtopics, and let me share them with you. Now, for My Crazy Life, the 4 subtopics just kept screaming out at me were childhood, adolescence, when things went right, when things went wrong. Now, as you can see, those ideas we're having, they're becoming more organized. They're becoming more drilled down. Now we're getting more drilled down into our subject matter. It's almost time to start writing. Let's go to part 3. All right, now we get to the meat and potatoes of this thing. We have a working outline. This is going to be the blueprint for you writing a book. This is it. This is what's going to have you becoming a published author, because you have a blueprint that gets you to that manuscript to get you that published book. Let's go ahead and run through it. I'm probably going to put like I said, I got this already. I'm probably going to put a page of this up here so you can see it better, so you don't have to go through my chicken scratch. Now, let's go ahead and get to our outline. I came up with our 4 parts that we talked about. Part 1, childhood. Part 2, adolescence. Part 3, when things went right. Part 4, when things went wrong. As you can see, I've added 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I've added 3 subjects that's going to cover each of my main 4 parts. Under childhood, I came up with my friends, my enemies, and God. For adolescence, I came up with tragedy at 15, first love, fighting my enemy. Part 3, when things went right, triumph at 21, defeating my enemy, still fighting. Still fighting is a good one I want you to look at. That did not come from my brainstorming session. Remember, I said this is a working outline. This is a working title. This blueprint is constantly changing. It's a moving variable. That's a brand new subject I came up with. Still fighting. I just threw it off the top of my head. That's going to happen. You're going to add things in here. You're going to take things out. That's normal. Let's keep going. Part 4, when things went wrong. Betrayal, worst love. Here's another one. Worst mistake. I came up with that. That's it. You're going to start right here. And what you don't realize is you have at least 12 working chapters. You have 12 chapters you just created for your book. You rocking and rolling right here and there. But let's continue where I can show you more. Now, you're going to develop your own writing style. I like to have at least 10 working chapters. You can have more than that. I think one book I had 22 working chapters, and I finally narrowed it down to 18. Reporter from Hell. But they start off at like at least 22 to 25 working chapters, and I narrowed it all the way down to 18. Now, this is something else I want you to look at. If you're trying to get started, like how many pages I want to write, that's going to be according to how much you want to go off and write in these books. As a rule of thumb, let's say I'm going to give each one of my subjects 10 pages. So here's 10, 20, 30. If you add up 4 parts, 30, 60, 90, 120. You have at least a 120 page book right here in front of you. There's no excuse if you can write anywhere from 10 pages each subject. That's 120 pages right there. When you're creating your manuscript, you want to write your manuscript in a word processing software such as my favorite is Microsoft Word, or if you have a MacBook, you can also use Apple Pages. Make sure your manuscript is double spaced. That's very important because when you send your book out to get edited or you're doing editing yourself, you're going to need room to make your corrections. So always make it double spaced. And also, when you finally get to the book process, you be able to condense those double spaces into single spaces just like a regular book. But just especially if you use the font, I would say Times New Roman or Arial, and make sure it's a size of 12. 12 is the size of the font. You're going to come up with your 120 pages. In Microsoft Word, if you use the font Times New Roman and the size of your font is at least 12, you're going to match your 120 pages. Probably more. I just know different ways to fatten it up. But 120 page, double space, manuscript, me personally, I can turn it to 150 pages. Now I can already hear you out there. Okay, Black P.O.E, where do you start? You can start anywhere with your book. You can dive straight into part 1. You're working chapter 1, my friends. Or I like to start off with an introduction. The introduction is kind of like my thesis. That's my summary. That's my layout of what I'm going to give you in this book without telling you too much. You understand? So I always think the introduction is a great place to start when you're writing a book. For me, I like to keep my introduction short. So I usually do 1 to 2 pages. I usually end up at about 1.5 to 2 pages. I just don't want the reader drug out an introduction. If they get too lost in there, like, shit, if it takes this long to get through the introduction, I don't want to get to the rest of the book. So I just like to keep my introduction short and sweet. Now, to sew everything up, once you have your book outline, your working outline, and then you figure out what solid chapters you want to make, and you change the names of everything, you've written anywhere from 8 to 10 pages per subject, and you put that in a size 12 font, and the style being Times New Roman or Arial, just to get good spacing, that's a complete book. We call that in the industry a manuscript. It's just ready to be taken to printing form. At this point, it's time for you to go ahead and find an editor. A little cheat code I like to use school teachers as editors. They used to grading papers. Find you a good smart English teacher who would mind doing the editing for your book, because editing is very expensive. That's probably one of the most expensive legs that I offer in my publishing service is the editing. I gotta bust you over the head to editing. It's very tedious. It's very important, because that's gonna make or break your book is finding a good editor. The next thing you want to do is find you a good book cover designer. And this is if you're doing self-publishing. I do that. I'll cover that on a later series. But another good place you can start to look for a good graphic designer is Fiverr.com. Fiverr.com got some pretty good graphic artists out there. You just got to dig through it and find the right one. I personally have my own graphic artist, and also I've kind of cut the middleman out. I've got a design software where I'm the graphic designer now. I've been designing a lot of my book covers, like bars. That's all me. I designed that book cover. So at this point, once you have your manuscript, you have it edited. I'm just talking about if you're trying to do the self-publishing thing, now it's time to go ahead and get your book published. I will cover that on a later series, but I just want to get you started right now on how to write a book. You have no damn excuse for not writing a book and everything I just showed you. And because you've been so kind and stuck it out with me, I'm going to give you a little bonus feature right here. I'm going to show you how to make money on your book without even completing the damn book. Right now, Amazon.com, if you're doing self-publishing, they got this program where you can upload 1 chapter at a time and start making money instantly off 1 chapter. Did you hear what I just said? Go ahead and write you a 2-page introduction and complete at least 10 pages in chapter 1. You can load that on Amazon.com and start making money before you finish the damn book. You can't beat that. That's just a little small jewel I'll give you for sticking with me. Just how to make money off the rip without even finishing the book yet. That's major. Thank you for tuning in. God bless. One team.